with the outpatient pulmonary rehab program, what does it look like after the discharge, and how long does it typically continue after the transplant?
Yeah, so every site will be a little bit different. So I said there's
Mm,
sort of four main surgical sites around Australia for lung transplants, and every program's going to be a little bit different. But often they'll go for 8 to 10 weeks after discharge,
mhm,
um, in the intense phase, if you like, and that's where people will attend multiple times per week. And again, part of the operation, it's really about looking at individual complications. Not every
mhm.
person has the same course after transplant. Everyone is an
Yeah.
individual as how they go afterwards. And so, it's really about targeting to the individual where they're at over that sort of 8 to 10 weeks post-transplant. But really, it's a progressive return to exercise. Very quickly lung function increases, but the muscles don't adapt that quickly after
Mm,
transplant. For a variety of reasons. And so, whilst lung function skips up, the muscles are slower and it needs to keep being progressively loaded. The good thing, of course, is you can breathe when you're doing that. And so it's the muscle fatigue often that will be the limiting factor, not shortness of breath now, which is good because that responds to progressive training. And so the idea is to progressively increase the workload over that, 2 or 3 months after the operation, which is then setting up the basis for the medium and longer term programs that come down the track. Yeah, look, there can be lots of different surgical complications that everyone's
yeah.
transplant journey is different. And
Mm,
so, yes, there's direct surgical complications as a result of procedure or potentially other complications that have arisen just as a result of the stress that we put the body under in terms of transplant. We certainly do see musculoskeletal issues post. We are fairly harsh on the bones in terms of bone density, for example. And so you can see people that can run into things like stress fractures, for example, post when they're increasing their workload. But like anyone else, sore knees, sore back, sore knees, sore ankles, for example, any of that can develop or be exacerbated that you had pre-existing. And some of that stuff is often hidden a bit beforehand because people aren't moving around as much because their lungs limit them. And of course, now that we suddenly change those lungs over, they can get moving again. And so the knees that have been a bit sore can get flared up just because there's suddenly getting a lot more activity on them that they've not previously had. It doesn't mean the knees have been made worse by the transplant. It's just that they didn't have the activity on them beforehand because the lungs were limiting it so much. So we certainly see some of those issues commonly appear. And it's just then adapting the program to work around them and work through the complications as they develop. But, as we say, no two people probably have the same journey.
yeah.
And that's why we get people to work with the teams post-transplant to help work through any complications for that person.